Wow.
But it's deeper than that, and it should be talked about as to what constitutes aggression. So here's the sort of the basic overview of the nitty-gritty. The first hit was for $80,000 cash wired to the assassin, by the way. It seems odd that he wouldn't send Bitcoin. He runs a website that collects hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin in commission, and he didn't send Bitcoin. Interesting. But anyway, so the first hit was for an $80,000 US dollars, and it was against a former employee of the Silk Road.
Okay.
And the reason initially he had wanted the employee, they used the word torture, right? He wanted him tortured and coerced because he had run off with a bunch of money from the Silk Road that belonged to the Silk Road.
Okay. I'm thinking illegal activity, forcing that the violence, no proper recourse for what was that?
Okay, that beep, by the way, and I'll get into this as well. That beep is from a blockchain.info page, and basically what this page is it's the wallet address that is controlled by the FBI because they seized a bunch of Bitcoin from the Silk Road. And
$3.5 million, is that worth?
$3.5 million worth about. By the way, they're saying that about $80 million worth of Bitcoin controlled by Ross Ulbricht somewhere, and they can't get to it because he hasn't given them the private keys. What they got was essentially the Silk Road's hot wallet used to administer
the user funds then.
Yeah,
essentially.
Well, yeah, it could have been the user funds. Basically, it's actually, yes, it was the user funds, and it was the amount on the hot wallet meant to facilitate withdrawal requests and payments, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But anyway, so that beep is the sound of a transaction landing in the wallet address that the FBI controls. And this is hilarious. Basically, people are sending they're sending minuscule amounts of Bitcoin to this wallet address and attaching a public message and just berating the FBI or advertising for their service.
Okay, what was the last one?
Okay, so the mythology of government is worshipped by the superstitious. They fear and don't understand real freedom. If I am to be free, I must allow others to be free. So this is one of the messages attached.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, this is one of the messages attached to it's like a note attached attached to the transaction. So I think that's hilarious. People are just sending tiny amounts of Bitcoin just to send a message. I think that's great. This is another one. I don't know if this is a fake quote or not. If the people allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, will deprive the people of all property, more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. The issuing power should be restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. Sounds like a greenbacker to me. But anyway, yeah, so it's funny. Basically, a bunch of people sending minuscule amounts of Bitcoin to this address just to basically send a message to call out the FBI for shutting down the Silk Road and basically harming the world.
Wasn't there some websites to other types of
there's one here for bitcoinwebhosting.net, and there's also some notes, crimenetwork.biz, drugs, weapons, credit cards, and more. This is another thing too. You're shutting down the Silk Road has really had no effect on the market.
Napster effect, right? Yeah. You shut down the big player, and then what happens? A whole bunch of small players pop up, and then you create even more of I guess they're not really creating the demand, but they're allowing more service and more competition, like you pointed out in the Bitcoin cast.
Right, Pablo Escobar. When they took Pablo Escobar down, a bunch of other drug lords just rose up in his place, and which was really funny. Yeah, price dropped and supply increased. Love that. But anyway, okay. So let's get back to the hits because that's the melodrama in this, right? So, okay. So that's the first situation where Ross Ulbricht was essentially, allegedly, trying to coerce an employee that had formerly worked for him and run off with a bunch of money.
Okay.
Now, I honestly think that because there's a monopolized justice system, this is really the only option open to Ross Ulbricht. That's
what I was kind of saying, stumbling around when I was saying that.
There's no other, you can't go to a private market for justice and say, can we label this guy a thief? No, instead, you not only that, but the only justice system that's around won't even consider that. They just want to prosecute you for your illegal drug market. Right?
See, I know, but I'm still not quite sold on the aggression thing because I don't think people should use aggression here, Ethan.
So I'll explain this further, and in that case, remember the only option really open to Ross Ulbricht. Okay. But the reason he orders a hit on this guy for $80,000, and then also, by the way, a second hit for, I think it was about $150,000.
Oh, wow.
So the reason he orders the hit on the first guy is because he says the guy works on the inside, he has too much information that he could go to police and governments with and compromise everything we have.
Okay.
Now, to some, this may sound like, hey, that's still not a good enough reason. You're just trying to, you're putting out a hit on somebody because you don't want to be, well, okay.
It sounds like mafia.
I guess it does. I find this entirely justifiable, and I'll explain why after I explain the second hit.
Okay.
So the second hit, $150,000 in value to off somebody.
And again, this was government provocateurs.
Yes, this was the FBI. There was nobody, in fact, ready to blackmail Ross Ulbricht, only giving him the impression that they would. So, again, allegedly. So what happens allegedly? That's such nonsense. Anyway, what happens allegedly is that Ross Ulbricht is presented with information saying, I have everything I need to compromise your entire operation. I have user lists. I have your identification. I have everything I need to bring you and all of your customers to bear bring them to the government. Right.
The government's aggression put upon them, essentially.
Right. They'll all be arrested, thrown in rape cages, same with you. And that's why I think this is potentially justifiable, because people look at this hit and say, that's Ross Ulbricht and he's murdering somebody. Well, consider this. Who made the violence a necessary option in the first place? Now, basically what happened is this guy comes forward and says, I'm going to compromise your operation and I'm going to subject you to the violence of the state unless you give me money. So he's extorting Ross Ulbricht, allegedly. Allegedly. And so in response, Ross Ulbricht says, well, I'm going to have this person killed. Now, when it comes to having people killed, that's obviously bad, right? However, think about this.
Unless it's self-defense.
Well, that's where I'm going, right? Is it self-defense? Think about this. Who necessitates the violence in the drug trade? Because one of the great things about Silk Road is that it pacified the drug trade market.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
The violence is being taken out because you have competition.
Right. Ross Ulbricht, remember, did not order a hit on somebody in order to increase his market share. He didn't say, hey, that person's running a competing website and we need to off them so that my commercial enterprise grows. He didn't do that. No, what he did was he allegedly ordered a hit on somebody in order to protect his business and his clients from aggressive acts. And what aggressive acts? Obviously, had this information been turned over to police, Ross Ulbricht and all of his clients would have been subjected to the violence of the state. Now, consider further. Imagine what would have happened had all of the states of the world together with one unified voice said, we intend to never, ever prosecute anybody who runs the Silk Road or anybody who trades on the Silk Road. We won't prosecute them because we recognize that this is a peaceful market. So we're going to focus our energies elsewhere. We are making clear our intention to not visit violence upon those who participate in this marketplace. At that point, releasing the information becomes completely inconsequential. The need to put out a hit on somebody who's blackmailing Ross Ulbricht, again, becomes completely pointless. There's a parallel here to compare this to. If you're saying, well, come on, this is a drug marketplace, maybe people would be embarrassed if it was exposed to their neighbors that they use cocaine. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe Ross Ulbricht would still have gone crazy and ordered a hit. And I don't think so. The reason that I can say this is because there are many, many online pornography website operators out there who host some pretty weird websites, let me tell you.
Tentacle porn? Japan? Oh, Japan.
Oh, Japan. Tentacles. But okay, so hold on. Why aren't people regularly hacking these pornography websites? I shouldn't say it doesn't happen. It does, but it's not a big deal, right? Why are people regularly hacking these websites to embarrass people? Why isn't that happening? Why aren't people going to website operators and saying, I'm going to release your entire user database to the government unless you give me money? It's because it doesn't matter.
Yep.
It doesn't matter because it's a pacified market. It's a peaceful commercial market where people voluntarily trade with each other. So if that's the case with pornography, because look, if your neighbors were to find out that you were into that tentacle porn, Ed? No, I'm kidding. I don't know what the hell you're into. But, I mean, if your neighbors find out that you're into some kind of weird porno stuff, I mean, okay, yeah, it becomes embarrassing, but really it's not consequential. Nobody's going to come after you, break into your home with 10, costumed individuals firing guns to throw you in a rape cage, right? That doesn't happen if your identity gets revealed as being, visiting tentaclelust.com or whatever. I wonder if that's a real website. Anyway, but I mean, the problem, nobody will visit violence on you for your fetish. Unless it's a drug fetish, unless it's about drugs. So Ross Ulbricht, in this case, was allegedly faced with something much different than, this is just embarrassing. I lay the blame for this entirely at the feet of the state. If the state were not in a position to intervene with violence, there would be no need to capitulate to this blackmail, right?
The moral use of force, essentially, is where it comes down to. But if you beat a person, it's like a bullying thing, right? If you beat a bully, if you beat a bully, you're seen as the aggressor, even though the bully was bullying
bully
you the whole
comes
time.
and aggresses against you, and if you defend yourself, somehow you're the bad guy. I think Ross Ulbricht's in that position. Yes.
Yeah. And if
allegedly.
If you kill, or say a terrorist, you kill his whole family and you beat him into a corner and then he uses violence to get out of it, is it really the fault of the terrorist for using violence?
Well, right. Look, and this is the thing that really gets me, is there are libertarians out there saying, "Oh, we can't. This is terrible. I'm ashamed to be associated with libertarians who are defending murder." I'm sorry. Have you been to a discussion where people are talking about how a convenience store who is the clerk who's being robbed defends themselves and shoots the robber, the aggressor? Are you laying the blame at the clerk for murder? What the hell is wrong with you that you would say this is murder? I don't see it that way. I think this is absolute legitimate self-defense, and all of this violence is caused by the state. What other thing about the Silk Road was violent? Nothing. Nothing about the Silk Road was violent. Not a single damn thing. And you're telling me that the state, who comes along and injects violence into the situation, acts as the aggressor, they're the good guys here? Yeah. Ross Ulbricht is the bad guy, the murderer? Come on. Peaking a bit there. I think the sound waves might have been...
We're okay.
I just can't believe it. I don't think this is murder. I really don't.
Well, no one was murdered because it was agent provocateurs.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, but pragmatic results aside, look, it just the very moral argument, the very moral argument that this is somehow unjustified murder had it taken... Look, the guy exists in a world where there is a monopoly justice system, where he is threatened with violence for engaging in peaceful trade with other people, and he doesn't even engage in trade really himself. He was just the facilitator. He was the guy taking commission for running a functional marketplace. And then the government comes in, they say we're going to lock everybody away in rape cages, and somehow they're not the bad guys. It's Ross Ulbricht when he's defending himself, allegedly, against this violent interaction. He's the bad guy. I absolutely find that position to be reprehensible, short-sighted, and not catering to first principles. First principles are really simple. Yeah. It's about aggression and the initiation of violence. If you say that Ross Ulbricht was the one who allegedly initiated violence here, I'm sorry. You're looking at this the wrong way. You're not taking the big picture into account. I don't see it.
Yep. It's people would say, "Oh, you're looking at it black and white." Well, you know what? That's what the world is. The world is black and white.
I disagree.
The religion of the state just mucks it up for people.
Sure, I don't think that the world is black and white. I think it's a panacea of colors. But
you have aggression, and then you don't have aggression. That's kind of where I'm.
Well, in
that
sense, okay, right. Look, is somebody initiating aggression against somebody else or not? And to say that Ross Ulbricht was the initiator here, I think it just ignores the fact that the state is so violent, that it uses violence and injects violence into the situation, makes it a violent situation. Again, what about the Silk Road was violent? Nothing about it was violent. It was peaceful trade, commerce between volunteering individuals. That's all it was. And somehow